Oh, shoot. Might need a key. Keys on the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give it one more minute to allow other people to join in, and then we will get started. Okay, so to be respectful of time, I wanted to go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for being here to our What I Wish My Parents Knew webinar. My name is Lindsay Gotanda. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for the district. I am so excited to have everyone here tonight. As we do with all of our webinars, we do have the opportunity for parents to interact with our panel by either sending us a question through the chat, or you can also use the Q&A function. If you raise your hand, we don't actually do any questions until the end, but you will have the opportunity to hear from our Executive Director of SAGE, Liz Shobin, one of our therapists who works at Peninsula High School, Bailey Tucker, and then our two amazing students. So with that, I am so pleased to welcome SAGE and What I Wish My Parents Knew.
Hi, everybody. So my name's Liz Shobin. I'm the director of SAGE. I'm also a therapist. I've been a therapist for about 30 years, and I somewhat successfully raised 3 children that are now grown men. And we're going to talk a little bit tonight about, I'm going to give a quick overview, then I really want to get to the students. And just so you, in case you don't know, SAGE partners with the school district. This is our 5th year. And you are very fortunate. The district has put a lot of effort into social emotional well-being of our kids here. And there is a therapist on site at every intermediate school and 2 at each high school that your students can see for free all year long. And I'd like to introduce Bailey Tucker. Bailey, raise your hand. She is a social worker, and she's assigned to Peninsula High School, and she's been there about a year. And then I have 2 fantastic students, Sydney. Want to raise your hand, Sydney? Sydney's a 10th grader at Penn, and Adina is an 11th grader at Penn. So I always want to, this is the presentation, What I Wish My Parents Knew. I kind of want to do an overview quickly, just so we're all in the same mindset. And it's very important to understand, as human beings, our brains are developing until we're 25. And during the teen years, the frontal lobe is the last part to develop. And that frontal lobe developing causes teens to be a little emotional. It's hard for us to think clearly when we're at this age. And there's a lot of risk taking. We don't want authority, but that's what our brain is telling us to do. So a lot of times I'll hear parents say, like, what were they thinking? They're thinking really appropriate, like a teenage brain. That's what we all went through it. And I think as an adult and as parents, we kind of be their frontal lobe and kind of help them. But on the plus side, with that creative kind of frontal lobe growing, teens are really cool. They're really daring. They think outside the box before their kind of adult brain sets in and we stop being so creative and we're afraid to do things. So they take risks and they take great chances. So it's a great time. I have 3 little tips I always want to share that as a therapist, you can also use them as a parent, as a mom, as a girlfriend, as a sister. Whenever a student comes in to see us, there's 3 things I always try to keep in mind. The first is whatever they come to tell us, we really want to validate their experience. So the kids come in for many things. Let's just say a kid has a really bad breakup. They've been dating for 2 years. It's a horrible, their heart's broken. Validate, like, I hear you. This is really, really hard. This is heartbreaking. I hear you. I see you. I get this. And normalize it. It's really normal. at having a heartbreak like this that really hurts. And you might not have had this before. So it feels really overwhelming. That's really normal. And really important is to not minimize it. And that's harder for a parent. As a mom, that's harder for me. But when a student comes in and talks about their breakup, you don't want to say things like, there's a lot of other guys out there. You're going to have a lot more boyfriends. Don't worry about it. Because it is really important to them. And it is something that in that point in their life is huge. And we don't want to minimize their experience. I'm going to give you 4 quick parenting tips. The first one I always say is pick your battles. I help families decide, like, you want kind of overall themes. You all want your kids to be healthy. You want them to be safe, probably respectful. So kind of pick those themes, and you might not want to nitpick at every little thing because then they start to tune you out. And you want to save like your big battles for, let's say your kid does something with their frontal lobe not processing and they sneak out at night or drive home with a friend that's stoned. That's when you really want to come in and you want them to pay attention. If you're constantly harping on the little things, they're checking out. Talk to your teen. And it sounds like a silly thing to say. And I know my students here probably back me up. Kids want to hear from you about lots of things and not just how's school, how's your homework, how's your college apps, how's your, they want to know other things. And I hear this more from boys, if I think it's just a preference, but students really have a hard time looking at their parents, they say when they talk. And that's why driving in the car with a parallel and you're looking ahead, it's a little bit easier to talk. Many kids tell me that their parents say, oh, that's okay, honey. And then they make that face that says it's not okay. So that's why kind of when you're not looking at your kids, sometimes they'll be more open to give you more information. You want to respect their privacy. And this is, again, age. Middle school is going to be different than high school. But I always say, give your kids their privacy. And if they cannot handle it, then you might want to step back. But by high school, kids should be able to have their phone with their own passwords. I don't know that you need to be checking all that. Middle school definitely is different, but I think it just depends. But in general, if you respect their privacy, unless they abuse it and something happens. And one of the most important things is to, most of the time when kids come in to see us or come to their parents, they're not necessarily wanting advice, even if they say it, they usually want to vent. So what would be a helpful thing to say is when your kid comes in and tells you something, hey, honey, is this the time you want a little bit of comfort? Or do you want us to brainstorm and problem solve? And most of the time, maybe they want to problem solve in a minute, but don't go right into problem solving. They come in, they failed a test, they got something happen. They don't want you to start going, well, did you read all the chapters? Did you go talk to your friend? Did you get the notes from the teacher? They know all that. They just want to be comforted. They want to be validated. They want to be heard, and let them vent. And a lot of times that's enough. I'm going to hand it over to Bailey, who's one of the fantastic therapists at Penn, and this is the Wellness Center at Penn. So go ahead, Bailey.
Hi, so I am one of 2 therapists working at Peninsula High School, and we're located in S11. So this is a picture of our beautiful wellness center. The center is open to all students who are in need of a safe space to process emotions, stress, and decompress. We have a really kind person who sits at the front desk and checks in with students to see if they want to meet with a therapist, if they're just here to use the space for one period, and just to kind of assess what's going on in the immediate. We provide short-term individual therapy for all students at Penn. Anyone can come in. We usually see kids who walk in and refer themselves, but occasionally we get referrals from parents and other staff as well. Many students come in for ongoing support throughout the year, but we also have students that will just drop in maybe because they're having a bad day, or maybe they have an isolated incident that they just want to problem solve or bounce ideas off of, or honestly just, have a silent place to vent. We also see students who are in crisis and need immediate support, but a lot of the day-to-day is the supportive problem solving, being a soundboard, and a safe space for them to just kind of say what's on their mind. We also work with a lot of students in identifying coping skills, because the goal is always to be able to go back to class. And so we don't want anything that's going on with their mental health to be affecting their grades, to be affecting how they're interacting with their teachers and with their peers and things like that. I see students across all grades, pretty much all demographics. Right now, I've noticed students struggling with symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression. Coming back from COVID especially, I've been seeing a lot more peer issues, symptoms of burnout and just not feeling motivated. And then the biggest thing is that if the student is experiencing any one of these things, then they have a hard time like talking about it, identifying it, and wondering like, okay, what's wrong with me? Why am I not feeling motivated? Why am I having a hard time with my friends? And like, what is this feeling like in my chest where it's like I can't breathe? And so when I'm working with students, it's really great to be able to like explain like, oh, that could be a symptom of anxiety, or it sounds like maybe this could align more with burnout, and really motivate them to, one, be able to talk to somebody, but also to be able to identify the coping skills to be able to deal with it and move forward.
Great, thank you, Bailey. And Bailey's here representing Penn, but we do have, like I said, we have 2 therapists at PB High and then 1 at each of the intermediate schools. And actually, Dr. Tanya had asked me kind of for an update just very recently. We've probably seen about 400 kids at the high school and probably 200 or 300 kids at the middle school individually. We also go into every single classroom and do presentations. So every single student has seen us in some capacity. But it's not like it's just a few kids coming in. We try to really normalize it, but we see about 20% of the student population throughout the year comes in at least once. So it's pretty prevalent. So if your kid ever came in there, that's a good thing. And I'm gonna turn it over to my lovely students. And who wants to kind of start, Adina or Sydney?
Yeah, I can start. So hi, I'm Adina Pack. I'm a junior at Peninsula High School. And I'm here today to just kind of talk about my experiences as a junior. I know right now, the second semester of junior year, it's kind of like in the heat of everything, college applications, getting everything together, standardized testing. So yeah, I'm really just here to lend a perspective on how to support, us basically as students, and, just like kind of getting the support that we need from home. And yeah, so.
Great. And Sydney?
Hi, my name is Sydney Arvanchi. I go to Palos Verdes Peninsula High School and I'm in 10th grade. And I just want to say thank you for all the parents that came here and joined the Zoom. I think that it's great that you guys want to see a student perspective and just learn more about how you can help your kids at home.
Great, so I'm gonna just kind of throw out some topics and Bailey can back me up, but these are the ones we hear a lot from when we get the parent calls and what the students come and present a lot with. It's usually around academics. So if you guys want to touch on it each from your perspective and your group of friends, kind of how parents can help you navigate it. Is checking Aries helpful? Should they be right on top of your homework, college apps, the whole spectrum? So any of you can start.
Yeah, so basically, at Penn is very highly academic. I know a lot of people know that it's just a very, very studious environment. So I would just say, like, as a parent, for me as a student personally, I would prefer usually that my parents, don't really take care of the academic side of things. Kind of growing up in such a rigorous environment, we kind of grow up knowing what our responsibilities are and what we have to do. But it is also helpful to kind of get a little push on little things like deadlines and such. But I feel like in terms of motivation for things like standardized testing, AP exams that are coming up right now, a lot of the times that students, I noticed, kind of get this motivation on our own. Like a lot of my friends, like we just kind of study like on our own because we know that we need to, not because someone's necessarily pushing us. So I think that's something that's really important to note, that we're also really stressed on our own. We got this, like we are able to kind of handle our load in the way that we can as students.
Yeah, I agree. Just like Adina is saying, I think that a lot of students, especially my friends, every day, we talk about academics and grades, and I think it's very hard for students to be put in a different environment, especially after online school. And I think the best way that parents can support their children is that they can offer breaks. One of my friends, her mom offered her a break, and it's just like, so it's the little things that make a difference. And she was able to take a break, and even though APs are coming up, I think it improved her mood because she was able to take a break. And I think that it's very hard that when parents like are on your back about grades, because I think at the end of the day, all the students know that they have to get good grades, they have to get the work done, they have to turn it in, they have to, they know what they have to do. But I think it's hard to get motivation when someone's telling you to do something. And I think if maybe parents offered more opportunities to take breaks, I think it'd be a better motivation for students to, after the break, want to study.
Sydney, can you explain like what it means by offering a break? Like, what are they specifically doing to get the kid them a break?
Well, my friend, her mom, like, offered her a break in the sense that, like, she was like, oh, do you want to go out and, get a little snack or something, like those little breaks. And then my mom as well, she like, she'll tell me, oh, do you want to go get, a snack or something? Or like on the weekends, oh, do you want to like go on a walk or something like that?
Good. Is it helpful for your parents to talk about their process? Do they share it with you? Like, I mean, it's been 30 years since they were in college, my guess is, but is that a helpful thing? Or is it like, okay, mom and dad, or do you want to hear about it?
Yeah, so basically, I would just say that, my parents are obviously like 30 something years older than me. So the times have really changed. Like they didn't have cell phones back then. It was just kind of all like, it was really different, like based on what I've heard. So I feel like a lot of the advice that my parents give me, it's different, but I feel like the basic principles still kind of hold. Like, like I feel like we're all so self-motivated. Like we don't necessarily like need advice from our parents in terms of like studying and such, because all of us, we all strive for our grades and we're all pretty stressed out too in high school. So I feel like it's really helpful, especially when parents, give these kinds of breaks like Sydney was talking about. Sometimes what my mom does for me is like, like what helps me a lot is going out and surfing. So she'll just take me to the beach sometimes after school and I'll just like, surf for a little bit. Just like, just like offering, I guess, coping skills, saying like, oh, like maybe you can go get a snack, or like just, I don't know, just like giving little incentives to kind of keep you going. I feel like that's what's really helpful as a parent, because, as students, like we don't really know like where to stop, like where our limits are yet, because, we're like what, 14, 15, 16, 17, really young. So yeah, I feel like it's really helpful for parents to provide ways for us to be able to cope with the stresses of being in high school, and, kind of give not necessarily advice, but just encouragement and, keeping us along.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to move on to another topic that we hear a lot about, substance abuse, being exposed to it. How do you want your parents to address those topics with you? Alcohol, drugs, all of that, partying. What is helpful?
Yeah, so I feel like, we're really fortunate to be in a school where it's not such, a huge issue, but just saying, it does exist. It is something that really does exist in our age group. So for me personally, things like cautionary tales, like I get really scared really easily. If I hear cautionary tales, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, it's shocking to hear. So I feel like instead of giving people or teenagers like punishments and saying, don't do this, don't do that, I feel like just kind of encouraging them to make the right choices and knowing, what is healthy for you, and encouraging them to kind of prioritize their health so that they know, what kind of decisions they need to make in terms of, or when they do encounter substances, whether that be in high school or later in life. I feel like that really just sets you up for success, because yeah, I feel like just like really caring about your health kind of pushes you toward that direction of making better choices, rather than saying like, don't do this, don't do that, because I feel like in our brains we're kind of wired to be like, reverse psychology, like if you say don't do this, it's like, okay, like I'm gonna do it, even though no matter what it is, you know what I mean. So I feel like just encouraging people to, or students to, know what's healthy and not.
Great. Sydney, any more tips or advice on that?
I agree as well with Adina that, we're lucky that we don't have an environment that's heavily focused on that. But I think one way that parents can help their, if someone they know does encounter something like that, I think providing their own stories, because I think my parents were telling me about, how they had new people, in their school that experienced that. And it's kind of sometimes sad, the stories of how they end up and, that their life was ruined because of the substances. And I think it subconsciously scares, if you tell your children that. And I think it would help in the long run of them maybe being more cautious when they're around that.
Got it. So actually, Bailey, I have a question for you. So in general, the kids come in are usually kind of struggling. They have a lot of coping skills. What are some of the top harmful coping skills you're seeing? You don't have to like give percentages, but like between substance abuse, self-harm, anger, acting out, what are the main ones you're kind of seeing lately that are unhealthy? And then you can tell me the healthy ones too. I'm just curious.
I would say a lot of self-harm.
Can you talk what that means for parents that might not know what you mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so self-harm is just referring to when a student, or I guess any individual, is choosing to hurt themselves either through like cutting with a sharp object or with a blade, sometimes burning like with a lighter. Trying to think, because I know some students get a little bit creative, but for the most part, what I see is like cutting and just using like whatever sharp object they can find. My understanding is the reason why that is happening a lot right now is because our students are so high achieving. They have to be so perfect and so on all the time that maybe they forget, oh, wait, I'm a human with complex emotions and I need to let this out somehow. And the release that they get from self-harm, unfortunately, it does release dopamine. And so then you kind of become addicted. You have to keep doing it. It's relatively easy to hide. A lot of students do it on their thighs, do it on their forearms. And then I would say the biggest piece to add to this is that just because somebody is self-harming does not mean that they are actively suicidal or having thoughts of killing themselves. It just means that they don't have the right coping skills to deal with big emotions. And they might not even have the right words to describe how they're feeling. It's just like, big thing happens, I need to get this out. So that I would say that's the biggest one, or the most common one that I see. I haven't seen a lot of substance use, but it's definitely there. I've seen a lot of students becoming like very irritable and just like angry, like describing like just wanting to like throw things or like honestly punch a wall. And so like sometimes I'll talk about, okay, well, like you can't punch a wall because that's gonna hurt you. And maybe somebody else, but like what can you punch? Can you punch a pillow? Can you punch your mattress? Maybe can you like go for a run or do something that's like gonna release energy in the same way? Other negative coping skills, I mean, I would definitely say just like sleeping and ignoring it, pretending that nothing's wrong and just like continuing to go, because eventually that builds up, and it's great if the student eventually ends up meeting with a therapist. But I think a lot of times students are just like, no, I can handle this, and ignoring the problem. So those are the negative coping skills. Do you want me to touch on more positive?
We should also touch on some of the ones, but anyone that comes in to see you, that's the positive coping skill right there. They're not keeping it in. But yeah, like some of the ones that you either suggest or that they're doing. Yeah, that'd be great. I don't want the parents to just get the one side. We want both sides.
Yeah, we don't want to scare anybody. Well, okay. So usually what I do when I first meet a student is I want to know what they're already doing that's working for them. And so I'll ask it in a bunch of different ways, but basically I'm asking like, what are you doing for self-care? What are you doing that makes you feel good? And a lot of times it's a distraction. So it might be like playing video games. It might be going out and spending time with friends, watching TV. Like it can be things like that. But it can also be things like journaling, talking to a therapist. It can be meditating, practicing any kind of mindfulness or spirituality. And then always what I want to send a student out with on the first session is some sort of grounding technique, just something to have in their back pocket when they're feeling the big emotion. They can do this instead of whatever negative coping skill they were doing before. So I'll introduce something like box breathing, really easy to do. You can find a box in pretty much any room. Where I am now, I see windows that I can use to trace, and basically with your eyes, with a finger, whatever, you're going to trace it, and you're going to breathe in for one side of the box, and then you're going to breathe out for the other side and keep going. And then just keep doing that until you are able to have control over your breath. I really like that one. Somebody told me that they use it in the CIA. So that's usually what I try to say to kids because I think it's cool. And then if that is not someone's cup of tea, sometimes I'll introduce like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you're going to find 5 things you can see in the room, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and then 1 thing you can taste. And what that does is it sort of brings you into the present. We're not worrying about what we have to do tomorrow. We're just worried about what's going on around me. Am I safe? Am I in the present? And so I think the biggest thing is to figure out, okay, what's already working, and then go from there and kind of like add in my own little techniques here and there.
No, great. That was really helpful. What I think is important to know is that when all the kids that we see, we don't necessarily focus on the way they're coping. If it's unhealthy, we need to help them, but it's what's underneath. Because if we just say, stop self-harming, they still have that icky feeling. They're just going to find another coping skill. So talking about it really works. So I'm glad that we have Bailey. So that leads me into a very debated hot topic for you guys with social media apps, screen time. What's helpful? And do you feel like you need help monitoring it? And if you do you want your parents to help you with that? That could be a whole topic, but I'll let you guys just tell me what you think about that, all of that.
Yeah, so I guess one thing that a lot of parents, or sometimes even my parents, don't understand is that, it's life is really different from when it was like in the 80s or 90s. Like just a lot of social interaction happens online, with apps like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. So, a lot of our social life is online. Like I make plans with my friends, through Snapchat or like through like texting instead of just like, calling or whatever. So I feel like that's something that's really important to understand first. And also I feel like with the pandemic, we've kind of grown to like be more attached to our phones because that was kind of like our one outlet and one source of being able to connect to people. And I feel like coming back into like the real world after, this whole COVID thing, it's really hard to kind of like detach from that. I noticed just for me personally, and I feel like my screen time has kind of like gone up a lot during COVID. I will admit that. And I feel like, kind of having other ways to kind of, cope or just like, have fun really helps to be able to detach from the screen rather than, just kind of trying to stop, put the screen away cold turkey. I feel like just encouraging your kids to find, other ways, like other fun things to do besides, scrolling through TikTok would be really helpful, just, from my perspective.
Yeah, I agree, but I really do not like social media that much. I do still have, some because, it's become like a way to connect with people. And I think it's interesting how it's different from messages versus other social media platforms, because I think the platforms allow people to connect with more people. But I think that, like Adina said, it's the screen time that a lot of people have is like crazy. And I think that, most people are having more screen time than they sleep. And I think that's when it becomes a problem. And maybe like just talking to your child about like how they could use that energy spent on their phone and, offer them different activities, such as maybe they are interested in art and they can do art instead, or reading, because I think that when people go on their phone, it's like kind of a break. But I think if, providing them the supplies and tools to use their time after school, if they wanted a break to do other things, would be helpful and not like looked down upon, in the sense that after their school, they want a break and they're not, they don't have to study right when they get off of school. And I think that it's hard for people to stop using social media because it's, you feel left out of the news. And then it's also that it's become like they have like, different methods that become highly addictive. But I think that if they have like at least one or two, it should be fine. But I think if they have more, it might become an issue because I think that their time could be spent somewhere else.
Got it. Do you guys have any friends that you feel are, because it's become a trendy thing to say or feel, that are kind of addicted to their technology and it's interfering with friendships? Could you talk, I mean, you don't have to name names, but talk about kind of what that looks and how you might want to help support that friend.
I feel like to an extent we kind of all are, because of the way that phones are like wired, and they're kind of programmed to be addictive because that's what makes money for the companies. So that's just the way that phones are. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily like a bad person if you're addicted to your phone. I notice that sometimes I can be really addicted to my phone. I feel like one thing that's really helped me kind of withdraw from that habit is when I come home, I try to put my phone up on the shelf that we have. I'm 5'1", so I can't really reach it. So I get up on my stool and I put my phone up there. And whenever I do that, it just makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel like I'm taking care of my mental health, and I'm kind of like, unplugging when I get home. So I feel like this kind of the act of doing that is really symbolic of like, I'm doing something for me today. Feels really good doing that. And it also helps that, my mom will be like, oh my God, good job, Adina. Like you did such a good job, you're taking such good care of yourself. I feel like just little things like that, like little words of affirmation are really helpful in, kind of keeping that, healthy habit going. So that's just what, works for me.
I've noticed with my friends, maybe not they're directly on their phone in front of me when they're, you're having conversation, but I've noticed a lot of people listening to music a lot, and even like, passing period, snack, lunch, and even in class. And I think, it's they're making their own decision to have in class, but when it like interferes with your social life, I think there it becomes a problem because they're listening to their music while talking and you can't really multitask. So I feel like it hurts friendship in the sense that you don't feel as connected to them because it feels like they don't care enough and they're not listening to you. So I try not to listen to music at school because I don't, bring those your ear devices or whatever you listen to school. So I think encouraging, it's hard to like tell them not to bring their, like AirPods and stuff to school. But I think just showing them that the opportunity that they can have with their friends instead of listening music can encourage them to want to be able to spend time with them instead of, spending time on listening to music.
Great. I guess this is a question for all three of you, Bailey, as well. Do you have any apps or things that kids are really drawn to that are very, you find are not healthy, just in general, like, the TikToks, I don't know, but anything that you in general are like, ooh, stay away from that. I see a lot of icky things. And then on the flip side, any things that apps and, the Calm app and things people are doing that are really positive. So any of you?
Okay, so a lot of positive things came into my mind first, actually. So I'm gonna start there. So I personally think TikTok is so great for just like being connected to things that you wouldn't normally be able to get connected to. The number of like mental health resources that are on there for just 30 seconds is really cool. Now that could be a therapist algorithm and not a student's algorithm, but I still think it's pretty cool. I know that there's also bad sides to it as well. But that was my first thought. TikTok is really great. There's really fun, like people will share different breathing exercises or affirmations. And I think that's really cool. The other thing I was thinking about.
Can you search on that, Bailey? So if I go to TikTok, because I'm probably like some of the other parents, and I want to just see those positive affirmations, how do I get that into my feed?
Yeah, you can search for it. As long as you watch like one video from start to finish, it'll start to populate your algorithm, or it'll start to change your algorithm to have more of that. The more you look at it, the more that you will see that. So I think, go from maybe like a couple dog videos a night to checking into like mental health TikTok. And like I said, I mean, everyone has their own opinion, and I guess we don't know for sure that they're all like licensed professionals. But I can say like some really cool coping skills are out there. And if you're somebody that's you know, working really late on homework and it's like midnight and you're feeling stressed and you just need a break, it would be cool if that's what you saw. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, I'm not sure if people are aware that the Headspace app, it's a mindfulness app for all ages. It's available to LA County residents for free right now because of COVID. And I mean, I use those videos all the time in sessions with kids. They're really helpful. They're aesthetically pleasing and calming. They have meditation for exercise. They have meditation to do right before a test. They have minute-long things to hour-long things, whatever you want. So I think that's really cool. And I always try to recommend it to as many people as I can.
No, that's great. And it is free because usually I think it's $99 or a year.
Oh, yeah.
And it's free. Yeah, 100%. Everyone should download Headspace. Do you girls agree with any of these? Good, bad?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that TikTok can be really helpful in, you know, kind of bringing together these coping skills and whatnot. But I also would like to note that, you know, TikTok, like the algorithm, like Ms. Tucker was saying, like it really hones in on what you're really interested in. Like it picks up really fast. Like it's scary how well this technology works. So I feel like it kind of like focuses on like your interests. Like for me, I get a lot of videos like of people like surfing or like doing beach stuff, or like sometimes I get the occasional dog video. It really like just is like a microcosm of like what you're really focused on and you don't really realize it. So one thing to note is that sometimes you can end up on like a really negative side of TikTok, and I feel like that's when it gets a little dangerous, and it is really addictive. So that's just one thing to kind of be conscious of. But I feel like for the most part, it is really encouraging and healthy videos because their I guess like their monitoring system is really advanced as well. But for me, I feel like in terms of like, you know, monitoring my mental health and confidence, the app that kind of gets me is Instagram, because I feel like on Instagram everyone kind of posts their best moments, while on TikTok people kind of just post like silly things and whatnot. So I feel like whenever I'm trying to take care of my mental health, I kind of like log off. Like Instagram is always the first thing to go for me, and then it goes TikTok, and then like Snapchat, and then everything else. So that's just what I wanted to share.
Yeah, great. That's helpful. Sydney?
I actually don't have TikTok, but I used to have TikTok. So overall, I do not really like the app at all, because although that, you know, there are great videos that you know, if you wanted to find, they have really good information sometimes, but I think a lot of the videos are misinformation, and it's a highly like misinformation spread on the app. And I think that some people know this, so that some creators might post videos with like false facts just to get views and likes, and that's how they get their money. So I think that's very hard to differentiate facts and what's not true, especially as a teen, because you know you don't know too much information. So I think it's really hard to like see if it's good or bad. But I think it's I saw a lot of videos that were like falsely that spread misinformation. They were like harmless videos, but at the end of the day they really influence you. And I've noticed, you know, like with the, you know, TikTok trends, you know, people are doing dangerous stuff sometimes, and overall I think they really influence you, since it's such a large community of teenagers. So I think they, at the end of the day, you know, I see a lot of these trends, you know, at school. Like we had some of the trends at our school that became a negative issue and became a bigger issue. So I think it's a good way to spread sometimes positivity, because you can reach a larger audience. But I do not like TikTok too much, because I think maybe because after I saw, there's this one video, and it was a harmless video, but it was of a picture of a whale, and it said this has how like whales sleep, but then it was like this way. But then I like marine biology, so but then whales don't really sleep because, you know, they have to breathe. So it didn't really make sense, but yeah.
No, but I love that there's differing opinions. So I think what I take from this is get to know your kid. And I always tell parents, like, ask your kid, you know, every week at dinner or whatever, if they're always on the phone, show me your latest app. And there's probably a ton of really positive effects of TikTok, but sometimes there could be negative. So just kind of looking at it. But I've always said, have your kid teach you one app every week. Show me your latest app. Show me what's going on, because it'll change anyway, and we won't understand it in a couple of weeks. Just when I figured out Snapchat, it changed, so I gave up on it. But anyway, I like that it's different perspectives. We go into the classrooms. I think we talked about that at the beginning of this. And we talk to every single kid in 6th through 12th grade. And we always say, hey, what are some healthy coping skills, or what are coping skills? And most of these are really good in moderation. And that's what we kind of teach them. So TikTok, a lot of these are really, video games, really good in moderation, but then it can go to the other end. So if your parents out there are wondering, there's some really healthy, positive things in doing some of those video games. If your kid's out at 5-6 hours a day and really freaking out and screaming, probably not so good. What about parents involved in your romantic relationships, intimate relationships, friendships, dating? How should they tackle that? What would be a good supportive way to help you navigate that?
Yeah, so one thing that I wanted to talk about is my family and I, we did this thing called the love language test. I know it sounds really silly, but it's basically applies to like all of your relationships, you know, with your parents, family, and even with like your spouse later in life. So I would really recommend just taking that test as a family, because we did that test and we realized that, you know, the ways in which I was interacting with my parents, like, you know, kind of going to them about my friendships and you know, my personal life, it was really different. Like if I was coming home about drama happening, my mom's first instinct would be to like give me a hug. Whereas what I was always looking for was just kind of like words of affirmation and validation. So I feel like doing that quiz like really helps. Like my mom actually scored really highly on like physical touch as her love language. And for me, I scored high on, I think it was like words of affirmation and quality time. So kind of knowing like where, you know, where each of you stand and you know, where like kind of the lines connect would be really interesting, I think, and really helpful in kind of like creating a really strong you know, parent-child bond. I feel like after taking that in my family, like we communicate a lot better. Like if I come to them about like friendships, like I feel like I prefer my parents to kind of be more like not be so like hands-on, be like, oh, like who are you talking to right now? Like, do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a boyfriend? I feel like that is kind of overwhelming because in my own, like I don't really know what's going on either. So I feel like taking the test kind of really helps to, you know, kind of just like give parents a guideline as to like what their kid really needs.
Is that an online, can I Google love language? I've heard this before, but
yeah,
it's an actual test, and it kind of shows you how you get energy around what's what speaks to you. And you actually take the quiz, like
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's online, but because I did it through a little volunteer group that I'm in with my mom. So but I think it should be online as everything else is nowadays. Yeah.
No, thank you. You guys are a very evolved family. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Sydney?
I think that the best thing that a parent can do is probably provide a safe environment where the teen feels comfortable sharing a more personal part of their life. And I think that since their parents probably went through that through high school, it would be helpful to hear their advice, or maybe just advice in form of a story of their experience, and not that they're communicating advice, but communicating experience. And if they wanted to, you know, present more caution to their teen, then maybe providing more of an experience, maybe from either themselves or a friend who had maybe a more negative experience, to just, you know, teach them some of the harms that can happen in high school relationships.
And Bailey, do you want to add anything about that? I think that's probably one of a presenting issue, relationships in some capacity, friends and intimate and romantic.
Yeah, I really like what both of you said, because like really loud in my mind, I was thinking, yes, you don't know like where you stand with this person. So how are you going to be able to communicate that to your parent? And then how do you communicate to your parent that you're confused about where you stand with this person? And so, yeah, being able to just validate like, oh, I understand. Like this must be really confusing, and just kind of, you know, be a sounding board, is a resounding theme that I've gotten from kids. It's just like, I don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on. Please just let me vent.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, the three things: it's that validate, normalize, and don't minimize. You're pretty good if you can just do that. And Sydney, did you want to add something? No, I thought you should. Okay. So the last topic, and then we'll have a couple of little resources and we'll get to questions, but on trusting you and respecting your privacy, like how would you like parents to manage that? And when should they be not so respectful of your privacy, if ever?
So personally, in my family, my parents, you know, we kind of have this rule that like they want to make sure that I'm both safe and healthy. So, you know, in terms of safety, like if, let's say, I don't know, I'm out at like 3 a.m., I sneak out, that's definitely not safe. Like I would just, you know, it's important to really set boundaries, like, you know, step in, you know, when it's really urgent. But at the same time, for like little things, like, you know, I don't know, like keeping, for example, like Ms. Shobin was talking about, like keeping your phone up, like with a password or something. I feel like little things like that, you know, it's important for us to kind of know like where to set our boundaries. But in terms of like privacy, I feel like a lot of the times what I want to keep private is like my personal life and like, you know, stuff about like boys and stuff like that. You don't really necessarily like want to share all of that with your parents. So I feel like that's stuff that often, you know, that's like kind of like a boundary that has to be made. But I want to say that like when, you know, it gets really serious, like, you know, like when it gets to a point where it's like kind of unsafe, so to speak, it's definitely really important for a parent to step in because like, you know, as teens, like we don't really know when we're getting ourselves into like really scary situations. Like, yeah, like it's important to like just set guidelines, you know, like what's okay and what's not in this household and whatnot. Cause yeah, I sometimes even for me, it's really hard to like know what's safe and what's not. And I feel really lucky that I have, you know, my mom and my dad there to kind of tell me like, you know, this can kind of go south if it goes one way or whatnot.
Right. And you led perfectly into what we talked about at the beginning, that your frontal lobe is not completely developed, still developing. And so you do need some support, and you are going to make a little risky decision sometimes because that's biological. There's nothing wrong with you, but that's how we're still programmed. And your parents did the same thing when they were your age. They had the same brain.
Yeah, and sorry, just one thing I wanted to add is that one thing that kind of helps with the privacy thing is like keeping like, I guess, keeping things really open and like having like an open dialogue between yourself and your parents. I know that sounds like really contradictory, but I feel like my parents and I, we kind of have this relationship of trust because I'm able to be open with them and I feel safe, like because we have boundaries, if that makes any sense. Like I'm able to like open myself up because there are like certain boundaries that we have established. So I don't know, I feel like that really helps to kind of, you know, make sure that, you know, kids are safe and everything. One thing that helps is like making sure that certain topics are not taboo but like openly discussed. Things like I know in my house we talk about, you know, everything from like, my mom was talking to me about like teen pregnancy the other day. You know, it shouldn't be something that's super taboo, or else like that kind of makes it something that's not discussed, which makes it something that like, you know, once it's not discussed, it's kind of like off limits, and like it's something that becomes I don't know, kind of like a forbidden fruit almost, or like almost just like really you know, just something that we don't really have a lot of knowledge about. So I feel like opening up like even like the most like awkward topics is kind of helpful to an extent. Like don't just like talk about everything at once, just like, you know, like on certain days, like I feel like it's really helpful to talk about kind of everything to make sure we're safe.
Great, thank you. Sydney, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's important that parents respect the privacy of their teens. And I think that mostly has to do with, you know, their phone, because I think a lot of our lives are like, you know, in our phone, you know, photos, messages, and a lot of different things. So I think it's important that parents respect that privacy of the teens. But then I think that if they wanted, you know, if they were a bit hesitant about social media and things, I think that they can, you know, maybe set some rules, I guess, and boundaries that, and for me, you know, my parents let me have social media, but then, you know, I have to have a private account. So, you know, like people can't just like follow you or like send you a message. And then also I think it has to be based on trust, because I allow my parents to see my location just for safety anyways. And I think that it's like a good exchange, I guess, like they can see your location because, you know, I think that they trust you enough that, you know, you're not going to do anything. And then again, in turn of, you know, you respecting their privacy on their phone.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you might say, I'll share my location. That means you trust me. Yeah, 100%. Um, so do you want to add anything, Bailey, before we move on to, I want to do a couple resources and let parents talk for a minute. Okay. So we're part of a broader, in the district, social emotional support for students is a really important thing for this district. We're in SAGEs and other school districts, but I have to say I'm very, very impressed. It's our 5th year in this district. They put their money where their mouth is. They really support, like to have a therapist at each school, 2 at each high school. Not a lot of schools in the communities do that. So it's a huge benefit. Please take advantage of it. But we're part of a big team. Everybody has a counselor. I think they're almost all alphabetical. I think at all the schools, even the intermediate schools, I could be wrong, but everyone should know who their school counselor is. That's a great first step to go to. The SAGE therapist is on site, there's school psychologists, great principals, assistant principals, and there's even in the district, someone in charge of entire student mental health. Temporarily, I think that's Dr. Catania. But it's an important part of the school, and I'm just really impressed with the district. These are some of my favorite resources. South-Based Family Connected. Everyone, please write that down. It's a fantastic website of a lot of free resources. They've partnered with the school district. So when you go to it, PVPUSD actually has its own section. Redondo has a section, but other schools have a section. So it's kind of even geared resources for your school. It's divided by students, parents, middle school kids, high school kids. I'm a kid that's dealing with bullying. It's just got everything. And they also offer free talks. They usually record them and they're on there and they speak sometimes directly to the kids, sometimes directly to parents. So I can't speak highly enough about it. Crisis text line. Everyone should always have this. It's for anybody, any age. You can be a grown-up and use it. It's 24/7 support by a real person. And it's all through text, which a lot of people feel more comfortable doing, or they're not in a safe place where they can actually talk. Text back and forth. I am a volunteer there, and we get a lot of texts. I get a lot of texts, like my friend is posting things, my friend's suicide, my friend's always got this drama. How do I support her? How do I support him? So it's just a great place to go. Suicide prevention is actually a phone number, and so also the Trevor Hotline, which focuses on LGBTQ youth. So those are both great. And this is a newer one that I fell in love with, and it's the Center for Parent-Teen Communication. Fantastic. It's a national website. You can go on and ask to be added to their newsletter. I think I get a newsletter or updates every week or so. Really topical. They don't speak down to kids or parents. It's fantastic. Can't say enough good stuff about that one either. And then if Dr. Catania comes back, if there's any questions, we'll let her ask us and I'll let you guys answer.
So right now there are no questions in the chat or the Q&A.
Silent, perfect.
So I'm happy to leave it open for a second if there's any parents who would like to ask any questions.
I will do another push, which Bailey already knows I'm going to push on this, that we're such a great resource. So our therapists are not only really trained on working with teens, that's all they do. They work with teens at your school. So Bailey is an expert on teenagers at Peninsula High School. I mean, that's all she sees. She sees them again and again. So if you have a question or you're concerned about your kid, you don't have to send your kid in. You can call up Bailey and say, hey, Bailey, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to ask a couple of questions. And your kid never has to see Bailey, but she's a really good sounding board to see if this is kind of like, is this, you seeing this a lot, or what's some advice? So I just want to put that push in there. School's almost out, but we're always there. The school funds it, so use us. Okay. I think I saw something pop up there, Dr. Catania, in the Q&A. Do you see it?
Yes, it was a parent saying, thank you. This was wonderful, and that we actually answered all of her questions.
Excellent. Okay. Any closing remarks, ladies, Bailey, students?
Yeah, I just wanted to add about at our school, I think it's S11, so basically just a wellness center where all the SAGE therapists are. I just wanted to add that it's a really, really good place to be. I know for me, whenever I'm super stressed about an exam or super anxious or just really not having a good day, it's a really good place to kind of go to, on those days when I just feel burnt out, and just, have someone to really talk to that's really safe. I don't know, just for me, it's been a really secure place to be in. It's like a safe space for me. So I feel just for parents, it's important to kind of know that just because your kid goes there doesn't mean that you're a bad parent or they're a bad kid. or like nothing's wrong, it's just completely valid. And the fact that, you know, kind of everyone, you know, is going to therapy now kind of just means that we're kind of like more evolved as a society and like more better suited to kind of deal with our issues. I feel like that's just kind of one thing that's really good that's come out of the pandemic. We're all a lot more conscious about our mental health because it's really come up as an issue. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of add that there.
Awesome. We do have a question for the students. Hi, it's Mrs. Lewis from the College and Career Center at PVHS. She says that she is in awe of Adina and Sydney. So thank you for both of them for being so open and honest. Truly amazing. Question: would it help if parents only spoke about college perhaps one night a week? So as opposed to having ongoing conversations, would it be better to just limit it to just perhaps, you know, one dinner or one night a week?
Yeah, I feel like it's something that's kind of hard to put a number on. Obviously, like I know right now I'm second semester junior. That's kind of like the one big thing that's like kind of all on our minds right now at this time. So for me, I usually in our discussions, I'm the one that brings up college to my parents because you know, going to Penn, it's a very, very academically rigorous environment, and that's kind of just what all my friends are talking about. So that's basically just like comes up at our dinner table, like kind of every day, if not every other day. So I don't know, I feel like maybe initiating the discussion in a way that kind of starts with like, what does your future look like, rather than like college, because even the word college kind of sounds really stressful, just from my perspective, just because there's so many connotations added to it. But yeah, I feel like having like open discussions about the future and like future education or whatever, maybe like twice a week or like, I don't know, yeah, I feel like I don't know. I don't really know how to put a number on it, but I just feel like kind of rewording it as like future plans rather than college is just something that really has helped for me.
Sydney, do you want to add to that?
Sure. I'm a sophomore, but so I don't, you know, I'm not in that application process yet, but I'm kind of interested in college. So I've been doing my own like personal research, I guess, on college. And I think that the best thing to do is talk as a parent to talk about their experiences, maybe applying, because I know that, you know, even though college process was maybe different back then, I think they still went through the same stress. And I think just communicating how they felt applying to college, you know, because everyone shares that same stress, and just ways that they maybe resources that they use to help them to apply and things like that.
Great. I can tell you that I had to type mine on a typewriter. You guys don't even know what that is. So that was stressful, not making a mistake with the typewriter. I'm not even sure if Ms.
Remember, yes. You had an envelope, you sealed it, and you put it in the mail hoping they get it.
That's right. That's right. But Ms. Lewis also would like to know, how can resources like the CCC assist in alleviating anxiety around the college application process?
Yeah, I feel like the CCC for our school, what they do is kind of prepare us for college. And I feel like for me, a lot of my anxiety is relieved through having a plan, like the specific plan on what to do. And I feel like whenever I go into the CCC for help, they kind of, you know, there's like, they have a lot of program opportunities. So just knowing that I have, you know, a really solid like career and college center to fall back on is really helpful in knowing, and kind of like not being so worried about college. I feel like having, I think one saying that I know is preparing, or like failing to prepare is like preparing to fail. I kind of like to think of this as like the flip side of that, like succeeding in preparing is like preparing to succeed. So I feel like that kind of helps me.
I think that what would be helpful is that if they were able to get like maybe a college speaker or someone who knows a lot about college, and just them communicating that, you know, it doesn't really matter necessarily the type of college you go to, because each college has their own resources and each student fits into a different college. I think it's so like nowadays, you know, everyone wants to go to the Ivy Leagues and like these top colleges just because of their name, but they don't really know of the resources that they provide. And I think that if someone was able to communicate to students that, you know, different colleges might even have more resources than some of the bigger schools, and, you know, going to a smaller school, you might get more of an opportunity. You might be able to build more skills and receive more internships, and will overall be better for your life. So I think that would be helpful.
That's great. And Ms. Lewis would like to suggest the book by Frank Bruni, Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be, because I do know that college fit is very important. I was a former high school counselor myself, and it was really important for me when I was a counselor to talk to my students about making sure that it was the right fit for them. Making sure that, being in a college with 20,000 students may not be the right fit for everyone. But in the same turn, having a really small, 2,000 person college may not be the right fit. So, making sure that it's the right, match, I think is really, really key. So if people are interested in that book by Frank Bruni, Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be, that is a good read that's suggested by our CCC director, Ms. Lewis from PV High. Let's see, do I have any other questions? There are no other questions. So Ms. Shobin, would you like to wrap up?
Yeah, I want to say thank you. We did it in an hour and I'm super impressed with our students, of course. It takes a lot of poise and confidence to do this. So I commend you. And Bailey and I had talked earlier, but I also want to say I commend the parents, because the students that come in to see us, they're great. So you guys are doing something right. I'm probably speaking to the parents that are always doing stuff because they're online watching us tonight. But you guys are doing something right because these kids are fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great night. And thank you, parents, for attending.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay.